Alrighty y'all, this is World Class Jerk, and today we're going to be talking about how to make flat surfaces in Astroneer using the leveling block. Now this item can be a bit confusing, and that makes people sad, hence this video's existence. For indeed, yes, today we shall be covering how the leveling block is such a big meanie with regards to leveling. Because, believe it or not, the reason people get mad and sad about the leveling block is really quite simple. It's because it doesn't level. Now, technically it is false to say that the leveling block doesn't level. I mean, take a look at our results here. Flat. No. The obvious issue lies in the fact that nobody cares about slopes. Slopes are losers. We want flat surfaces that are not slopes, that we may build bases on them, or perhaps even structures. And so you as the viewer are now likely asking, oh, World Class Jerk, how may it be that I, the viewer, who will immediately subscribe after this video, can make a surface that is truly slopant? Well, fear not, my fellow jerks, for where there's a will, there's a world-class jerk to find the way, and that is exactly what I've done here. The gist of it is that you cannot change the orientation of the leveling block's placement. In a location where using the leveling block will result in a slope, you will never be able to get anything but a slope in that location. This means you cannot make flat surfaces that aren't sloped at just any location. You must use the leveling block somewhere on the planet where its placement orientation will naturally give you the results of a truly level surface. Now, I know what you're thinking. If the leveling block requires me to go on a full-scale pilgrimage in order to get a level surface, why shouldn't I just use the terrain tool to get a level surface instead? Well, long story short, you cannot make perfectly flat surfaces with the terrain tool. I won't go into detail as to why, but when you try to make a flat area with the terrain tool, it won't actually be flat, and this becomes distastefully obvious as you flatten out larger areas. Now that's good and all, but how do we find these locations where the leveling block places truly level surfaces? Well, that's both the good news and the bad news. The good thing about finding a location where the leveling block will place soil level to the ground is that it's really easy to find these locations. And that's because every single one of these locations is at these gateway thingies. Go to literally any of these and you will be at a location where the leveling block places soil level to the ground. Which brings us to the bad news. The gateway thingies we use to find these locations are at these locations. They're literally blocking the greatest spot for flatesquity. Now this is problematic for tremendously apparent reasons, but it's even worse than you think. You see, planets in Astroneer are round because that's how planets work. Point being, we are making a flat surface on a curved planet, so we can only make this surface so large before level becomes slope. But that's not a big deal, right? This surface is big enough if we stop expanding before level becomes slope, so let's just do that. And you're entirely correct, this is a big enough surface. The only reason it wouldn't be is if something was in the way. And so you see, these gateways are preventing us from making flat surfaces large enough to be useful. If only there was a way to move them. And so there is. If you try hard enough, you can get a save where the gateways are floating above the ground just enough so that they will not be in your way when you're trying to flatten the ground beneath them. Now that isn't the main idea of this video, so I've just now decided I'm going to make a separate video on how to get saves with floating gateways that I will link right up here once it's made. And if you're watching this video before I make that one, then well, I guess. So now that you know how to get to a location where the leveling block will allow you to make a level surface, let's discuss proper etiquette on how to get the most out of said surface. As mentioned before, many times you are on a planet that is round, so if we try to place the leveling block like so, we're going to end up coming off the ground and getting that slope thing we so passionately hate a lot sooner. As such, we want to dig down just a bit like this before we use the leveling block. Now, I know I said earlier that the terrain tool cannot make perfectly flat surfaces, but actually it can if we flatten from the leveling block, so after we use the leveling block, for efficiency's sake, we are best off using the terrain tool for the rest of the job. Once you get a little area like this flattened out, just choose a direction and start going in it, and you will begin to notice that due to the curvature of the Earth, you are actually getting to where your flat surface is meeting the normal ground, so that it will look like a natural flat surface. And so yes, obviously if you want your surface to be, handsome, then what you want to do is make your flat surface meet all the way up to the normal ground and don't go any further because, as mentioned before, if we were to continue going flat and extending from here, it would become a slope because the normal ground continues the curve, but our surface would keep going flat. That is why you want to stop right here at this point where it looks like it is natural. And so, once you follow these world-class steps, you will notice that you have a flat surface and that this video is over.